How do you decide that anything is important? I think the lens of history is a helpful guide here. Things that may seem important in the moment, but actually aren't that important. Over time, if you look at things over a broad span of time, the things that are less important kind of fall away. And if you look at things from the broadest possible span of time as it relates to life itself, what are the important steps in the evolution of life? There was the advent of single-celled life, there was differentiation to plants and animals, life going from the oceans to land, mammals, consciousness. And I would argue also on that scale should fit life becoming multiplanetary. It's the next step, actually, because you really kind of need consciousness to design vehicles that can transport life over hundreds of millions of miles of irradiated space to an environment that they did not evolve to exist in. I think it is the next natural step. So if one could make a reasonable argument that something is important enough to fit on the scale of evolution, then it's important. And maybe worth a little bit of our resources. And one can also think of it from the standpoint of life insurance. That's kind of the thing that I think it's important that we give a little bit of our mind space towards. And I think it's also one of the most inspiring and interesting things that we could try to do. It's one of the greatest adventures that humanity could ever embark upon. You know, life has to be more than about solving problems. You know, if all that life is about is solving problems, why bother getting up in the morning? There have to be things that inspire you, that make you proud to be a member of humanity. You want to do projects that are inspiring and that make people excited about the future. Well, you have to look at what's the definition of an ordinary person. I probably wasn't that ordinary, but my lack of ordinariness did not manifest itself until later in life. But I think people can choose to be not ordinary. They can choose to not necessarily conform to the conventions that were taught to them by their parents. Yes, I think it's possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. It's really a mindset. You have to decide, we're going to try to do things differently, well, provided that they're better. You shouldn't do things differently just because they're different. They need to be different and better. But I think you just have to sort of decide, let's think beyond the normal stuff and have an environment where that sort of thinking is encouraged and rewarded, and where it's okay to fail as well. Because when you try new things, you try this idea, that idea, well, a large number of them are not going to work. And that has to be okay. If every time somebody comes up with an idea that has to be successful, you're not going to get people coming up with ideas. You know, just showing up is half the battle. Just, you know, you got to try hard to do it, and don't be afraid of failure. You also need to be rooted in reality. It's easy to get high in your own supply. You've got to not be afraid to innovate, but also don't delude yourself into thinking something's working when it's not, or you're going to get fixated on a bad solution. Also, just don't be afraid of new arenas. You know, you can get a book, you can learn something, and experiment with your hands and make it happen. Find a way or make a way to get something done.